Hello, and welcome to our summer webinar series. My name is Jordan. For those who aren't aware of who I am, I am the Volunteer Partnerships Coordinator for New South Wales and ACT. I've got our special guest that I'm going to introduce her as an Australian singer-songwriter, even though she has only just got back from New Zealand, a pianist and music therapist based in Sydney. She sprung onto our TV screens back in 2017 when she auditioned for The Voice and progressed to the knockout rounds. Since then, she's lit up the stage performing at a host of high-profile events, including the Invictus Games in 2018, the Tamworth Country Music Fest in 2019, National Flag Raising and Citizenship Ceremony in Canberra on Australia Day in 2021, and Vision Australia's Carols by Candlelight in 22 and 23. Lara spends her spare time being a positive role model for others, increasing the exposure of people living with a disability, heading the current Amy Does campaign, and featuring in many Amy Insurance ads as part of the Shift 20 initiative. That initiative is aimed to increase the number of people with a disability that is in broadcast in mainstream media, across TV and cinema, as well as the new voice of the Lucky You're with Amy jingle. She was nominated for Blind Australian of the Year in 2023. And in the time I've known her, I've witnessed firsthand the amount of time she spends promoting and building up other aspiring young artists with disability. So it's a great privilege to welcome our guest, Lara Nakhle. Thank you again for taking the time to chat to us today.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. And hi, everyone. It's so great to be here.
So I'm going to jump right in. This topic for this webinar series is creatives improving the world for everyone. I always see you doing this, whether it be with positive lyrics in the music or writing, or the study you've recently undertaken in music therapy as well. Is that what music was for you growing up? Therapy?
Pretty much. I mean, there's actually a big difference between doing music and music therapy, but I guess music was always an escape for me because like growing up with a vision impairment, I was born completely blind, and like there were a lot of challenges with that, like especially with school and like not being included in a lot of things.
Yeah.
But music was just like the one thing that I knew I could do from a young age because I was always interested in it. And yeah, my parents discovered that I liked playing the piano and singing, and they tried to get me into music lessons from when I was about 7. And yeah, like I guess I've just always loved performing in front of people, even though sometimes I do get a bit nervous, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, everyone does. And
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it is kind of like therapy.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about your mum sort of fostering that interest in music with you. Uh what some of the sort of earliest memories that you have of music growing up? What sort of you touched on that it's something that you could do, but obviously that's something you had to learn that you could do as well. So how did you sort of get into that field?
Um, so well, yeah, it's definitely something I had to learn to do. No one is like born naturally talented and able to
Yeah.
do stuff. I had to have a lot of lessons to get to where I am now. But I guess my earliest music memories were from when I was about 2.5, and my parents bought me a toy piano that would be in the lounge room, and I would always like go there in the mornings first thing and like try playing songs I heard on the radio.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the first ones I tried to teach myself to play was Frere Jacques,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a lot of other nursery rhymes. And then later down the track, I kind of just tried to learn regular songs, such
Mm.
as Am I Not Pretty Enough and Born to Try.
Yeah.
She was one of my favorite singers. And yeah,
All on a little toy piano.
um, well, yeah. Yeah.
Did your mum must have thought you were talented though, because I remember having one of those pianos when I was a bit younger, and my mum couldn't wait to get it off me. So you must have been fairly talented from the
Uh,
get-go.
well, so my first piano teacher said that I've got perfect pitch,
Oh,
and so I guess that kind of meant that I was talented. Uh, and yeah, like once I started having piano lessons, well, actually, I had Braille music lessons as
yeah,
well,
yeah,
and that teacher kind of joked that because I liked singing so much, maybe I should get a singing teacher.
yeah.
And I happened to be out one day at a travel agent with my mum, and I was just like singing the song that was playing on the radio at the time. I
Yeah.
was 8.5, and the travel agent said that her daughter has singing lessons with um, a vocal coach, and um, yeah, so she gave mum the contact number and I had my first lesson, and yeah,
Rest is history sort of thing.
re-
You've touched on it numerous times that you have, well, I would say that you have incredibly supportive parents. I've met them a couple of times and found them to be incredibly supportive.
yeah.
They appear to have a smile on their face every time that you play any keystroke on the piano. They've got a big smile on their face in the front row. At what point did they sort of realize, well, we've got a performer in the family? Had you had performers in the family before? Like, were your parents musically orientated or?
Well, actually not really. So my mum can kind of sing, but not really in tune. Well, she kind of can, but she just starts in the wrong key. So
Okay.
not singing really high. She can kind of play a bit of guitar that she tried learning when she was a lot younger, but she never really kept up with practicing. And my dad plays accordion, but apparently my grandma on my mum's side used to have a good singing voice. So mum seems to think I got it from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you sort of touched on as well, that you obviously started out with a rather supportive family, and you
Yeah.
touched on as well that sometimes like this, you're not the first person. A lot of people have come onto these webinars and said as much as well that school was a challenging time.
Yeah.
Did you how did the education system work for you in particular? Where did it sort of bring you out? Where did it make you believe that you needed to go?
So I learnt Braille from the age of 4, but I always went to a mainstream school, and um, like
Yeah.
teachers
Okay.
were quite good with knowing what to do, although I had a vision support teacher
Yeah.
to the end of high school, and she always made sure that work was brailled or put into an accessible format, like a
Yeah.
Word document, because sometimes they were in PDF. And um, yeah, but like I still had to advocate a lot for myself,
Okay.
especially when I got to uni. And
Yeah.
like with a lot of sports activities, I was left out. So sometimes it was a bit difficult because, like I was always trying to prove to others that I can do stuff. And
Yeah.
um yeah, but I guess like it was a pretty good experience overall. Some of the students weren't very nice or understanding. I was changing friendship groups a lot,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that that's an experience a lot of people can relate to. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Did your parents have that sort of toing and froing about mainstream schooling or whether they should look at other options? Was that something that was ever sort of in your parents' mind?
Well, actually, not really, although I went
No?
to Vision Ed preschool.
Yeah.
And that's where I started learning Braille, but most of it was just at school, from like when I was in kindergarten and year one and year two.
Yeah.
And um yeah, like so while I was learning Braille, my classmates were learning print,
Yeah.
and um
Okay.
it was
So
really like a choice. It was always mainstream.
yeah. And look, that could be really challenging for a parent, to kind of decide what's the best move for so far in advance as well, because obviously schooling forms a large part of our lives early on.
Yeah,
Did you, a lot of performers I've spoken to in the past, though, when they do talk about the challenging school system and the career advice that they may have been given or not given during that time, kind of talk about how it enriches their voice and their emotion in their music. Is that something that you can kind of uh, you can kind of see in your own voice as well?
kind of. So I only really had a couple of sessions with the careers counselor,
Right.
that she could kind of tell that I was a good listener and that I was good at writing. I was never really like into maths or science
Yeah.
subjects. Like anything visual was hard.
Yeah.
So I always kind of stuck to like what my strengths were, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to decide to do psychology for uni, because
Yeah.
I mean it wasn't really, well, there are a couple of visual units, but mainly um a lot of it was just written things.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
look, um, a lot of sort of mentors have said there's no such thing as a wasted experience. You probably would have got a hell of a lot out of that. But was psychology like a love of yours, or was it more just what you once again what you believed that you could do and could be good at? What were your thoughts around that when you first started up at uni?
Yeah, pretty much. So, like, I didn't really know much about it before I actually went to uni,
Yeah.
but I just thought it was something I could do, and I wanted to go to uni and do something. And I've always loved chatting with people and trying to help in whatever way I can.
Yeah.
And like, I've always been like a very social person, I guess, even though I didn't have that many friends growing up.
Yeah.
I did in primary school, but just not high school.
Yeah.
I've always really liked people and wanted to make a difference.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of ties into you being a good listener as well.
Yeah.
Um, and once again, as I said, I think it probably has a big part to play in some of your songwriting and your lyrics as well. The fact that you seem to have a rather sort of positive outlook on people and circumstance in general. Um,
Well, I try to make songs based on my own experience.
yeah,
Like some of them aren't. Like a couple of my songs are just random, and then
yeah,
they're not even about me, like because I co-wrote them with
yeah,
my coach, and like those were my first two songs, and then the third one I released I co-wrote with someone else. And then my most recent song that I released last year, well, actually, no, 2023, on Spotify and other digital platforms, New Day is about overcoming challenges. And I tried to make it very relatable. Um,
yeah,
so
definitely. Fantastic song. It's a cracking song. So you're now a master's in music therapy. You've completed that course as well. Did you find your experience did, at university doing psychology, did that sort of help in you doing music therapy? Like, where
uh,
was the where was the bridge between the two for you?
Well, so after I completed my Bachelor of Arts Psychology in 2019, I tried to find work
Yeah,
and
of
it was really hard because then the pandemic happened. And
course.
I got Maxwell, my Black Labrador guide dog. He's absolutely adorable, but I had to do a lot of training with him. So
Yeah,
2020 was kind of a hard year, but really fun at the same time. But, I thought, well, I kind of need to do something because with psychology jobs, they require a lot of experience, um, which I didn't have because I only did one placement,
yeah.
uh, like in that degree.
And
So
that can
I,
be often be the case when you're trying something new as well. I think a lot of youth that I talk to as well, in particular, I mean, typical youth. I mean, you're not sure what you want to do at that age anyway, because
yeah,
you're only young. But I remember one of them turning around and getting a RSA, which is like a responsible service of alcohol, and couldn't get a job because he had no experience, but then couldn't use the qualification unless he got experience as well. So kind of
and
puts you in a rock and a hard place, doesn't it?
yeah, and the other thing about like having a psychology degree is that it's very broad. So you can register with like a lot of different boards and stuff. There's not one in particular.
Yeah,
A lot of jobs are kind of looking for those registrations as well. Like just
gotcha.
having a degree was not enough. But I have a family member who had music therapy and still continues to
Yeah,
have music therapy sessions, and I got to experience firsthand the benefits that it had on him
yeah,
and
yeah.
how much he improved in a lot of different aspects. So I thought, why not combine my passion of helping others with
Yeah,
music?
good idea.
Yeah.
So for those who haven't experienced music therapy before, I obviously have, but some people may not be aware of what it is. You want to give us a bit of an explanation of what music therapy really entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, music therapy is an evidence-based practice which has been around for more than 50 years now. And the therapist works with a range of different clients with various needs. So people who have disabilities, mental health conditions, aged care residents, and well, a lot more types of clients as well, but they help them with developing like their nonverbal and verbal communication skills, social interaction skills, um, cognitive development, um,
Right.
and physical and motor. So
Yeah.
it's quite a range of different areas that music therapy can be helpful for.
Very meaningful work, I imagine as well. You'd be walking out of those sessions feeling pretty accomplished that you've helped somebody in that time period, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Obviously, these qualifications have shown that you're multifaceted, but uh, there is a point that we do talk about, obviously, in your intro that you took part in a season in 2017 of The Voice.
Yeah, I
Um,
did.
can you tell us a little bit about obviously how old were you at the time?
I was 19.
19. So still very much coming out of teenagehood as well,
Yeah.
with a tricky high school situation to navigate as well. What made you think, or what gave you the confidence to go and give that a go?
Well, I was just about to start my second year of uni,
Yeah,
and like I was still kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. Um, and also like I didn't mention before, the reason why I didn't just go straight into doing a music degree was because like there's not really much you can do with it other than
yeah,
become a music teacher.
right,
Um, but actually it wasn't my idea to apply to go on The Voice, it was my mum's.
right.
And yeah, basically she said, well, you know what? You've always grown up watching The Voice and other singing shows, and you might as well just give it a go and see what
Yeah.
happens. and that's what I did.
Yeah. Did you obviously there were other performers on The Voice before you that might have been somewhat of a pioneer. Did you have like any sort of mentors or something like that that was sort of fueling your decision to give it a crack or
So on the first season of The Voice, Rachel Leahcar came
oh yeah.
third,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she's vision impaired from Adelaide. And yeah, I thought she was pretty amazing. I'm sure a lot of people did too. And um, so I thought, well, if other blind and vision impaired people have done it before, then, like maybe I can as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just thought it would be great exposure for me. And I didn't know what would come from it, but
Yeah.
it was such a fun experience. I got to meet so many cool people, and I had so many gig opportunities after that, and I
Right.
continue to. And I actually got to collaborate with Rachel on a song that was on her Christmas album a few years ago.
Amazing. Amazing. So with the voice, and I won't sort of focus too heavily on the voice because I imagine you've probably been asked these questions hundreds of times in mainstream media in particular, because it does bring that exposure and it does bring lots of
Yeah.
interview opportunities, I imagine, as well. Um, Proper scary would have been walking out onto a stage, or was it something that was there anything you did to kind of prepare yourself for that, or did you just kind of go, well, look, one foot in front of the other?
Well, to be honest, I was a bit nervous
Yeah,
about because like I had no idea if any of the coaches were going to turn for me,
of course.
and luckily two of them did. So
Yeah,
that was a nice surprise. And yeah, like I made it to the knockout round, which was just after the blind auditions, so the top 48.
yeah,
And yeah, like although I didn't get very far, it was still good to get to that point.
yeah,
And
of course.
a lot of people actually remembered me. And so when I was walking around the shops and just anywhere in public, people would stop me and be like, "Hey, are you the girl on The Voice?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Um, so to give you context, I want to sort of talk a little bit about how you have seen the music industry evolve during this time. So just for context, obviously, 7 years ago, Shape of You, Ed Sheeran was number one at the time. Since then, they've had same-sex marriage legalized, global pandemic, Brexit, invasion of Ukraine, and the full NDIS rollout as well. We had Dylan Alcott winning Shine of the Year. So lots has happened during that time. How have you seen the music industry evolve in the way of disability inclusion and representation since you stepped onto that stage?
Well,
What have you
that's
noticed?
an interesting question. I think, well, since about a few years ago, I guess, there's been more performers with disabilities being showcased, like in the mainstream media.
Yeah,
I think the Dylan Alcott Shift 20 initiative had a big thing to do with it because it was all about like increasing disability representation in advertising.
yeah,
So it's not that there were more musicians with disabilities as such. I think it's just that they were being um, shown more. So
yeah,
public got to have a better idea that, you know, people with disabilities are just like everyone else,
yeah,
and they do regular things, and they should be treated exactly the same. But there's
yeah,
still a long way to go, I
yeah.
think.
And look, recognizing talent is talent as well, because, it seems to be the music industry has that where talent is, uh, it's one of those things that it can kind of supersede,
Yeah,
many other things as well if you're talented.
I definitely agree with that. And also because like on shows like The Voice, they always have to have a backstory for most contestants anyway. And
Mm,
even for me, they tried to make it like a story about me being blind and like how
yeah,
challenging it is, but I wasn't giving that to them. I was
yeah,
just saying, I'm blind, but that doesn't stop me from doing anything and it doesn't put any barriers in my way. So
yeah,
yeah, which is the message that I've always tried to get across.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's as I said, it's noticeable as well with your music. And as you said, like I've known you to be quite a perfectionist at your craft. You're you're very, very on par with when you're even the slightest bit out of key, and that's very, very important to you as well. I'd imagine there'd be quite a few music artists that would maybe not be as on point with critiquing their pitch and things like that. I think some of them, I know quite a few rock stars that are thinking more about other stuff. So yeah, I think
Well,
it
I
should
guess
be
I'm not
dependent on your talent.
I'm not always on pitch. I mean, I really do try my best, but I still do critique myself quite a bit. Like when I'm watching back my performances, I might say, "Oh no, that note was a bit flat." Or I could have sung that part a bit better. But like no one's perfect, and all you can really do is try your best.
Well, I mean, that's showing your dedication to your craft as well. Because as I was saying, there are some people that are, as you said, no one's born talented. They've got to work at it, and it sounds like you've done a lot of work at it.
Yeah.
Can I ask a little bit of uh, can I ask a bit of a question in regards to your younger self here? Because you touched on the fact that there are more musicians that are in mainstream media that are getting noticed, getting that stage to perform. Growing up, was there anything like that that you sort of noticed as muses for you, or was there less of that sort of like who were your muses growing up?
Um, well, to be honest, like I didn't really see many people with disabilities
Yeah,
um performing much like in the mainstream. Although I always looked forward to watching Carols by Candlelight every year on
yeah,
Channel 9. And then in 2022 and 2023, I had the amazing opportunity to be part of that. And
yeah,
it was honestly like so exciting and like just really fun because I got to meet so many famous people and celebrities backstage and like in the
yeah,
hair and makeup. And yeah, but every year on Carols there were always Blind Vision Australia ambassadors and
yeah,
client stories, which I thought was really cool. And it was like always my dream to be on a show like Carols one
yeah,
day.
yeah.
And then that opportunity came and I just thought, wow,
Was
like
it a bit of a sort of pinch me moment sort of thing? Like,
yeah, it really was. Because I
yeah,
didn't think that it would ever happen to me. I thought I had to be like really famous and well known.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Well, as I said, talent's talent. Sometimes it can be it, it can be it just needs a stage to show,
yeah,
and that's kind of what a lot of musical artists will often talk about, the fact that that they didn't grow more talented with more with more exposure. They were always talent. Well, they worked at being talented, but uh yeah. So I've got a bit of not so much as much of a question, but a statement. I've got a statement from Christy saying she's really enjoying the presentation and she's loved all your music uh, since the first time she heard you sing. Keep up the great work. So thank
wow.
thank you
Thank-
for that, Christy.
Thanks, Christy.
So we're at the halfway point of the webinar as well. So this is probably my opportunity at this point in time like Christy has done, just to remind people that if you do want to ask a question of our guest, and you are using a screen reader, the keystroke is Alt-H to bring up the chat window, and then you can type your question on in there for me to direct towards Lara. We've got half an hour left of the webinar, so definitely get those questions in if you'd like to throw them my way. I'll obviously direct them towards Lara so she can answer them for us. Yeah, that would be great. So I wanted to, while waiting for some of those questions to come in, I'd like to sort of ask you a little bit about what sort of advice you would have given yourself, because we talked a little bit about career advisors, and often career advisors they'll have the difficult task of giving people advice on where it is that they would where it is that they think they might be able to utilize their skills best.
Yeah.
What sort of advice would you give a young Lara?
I guess I would give my younger self the advice that, like, if you have a dream or something that you want to achieve, then you should just do it.
Yeah,
Like, it might be really hard to do that, um and not listen to people who discourage you. So yeah, like, it's definitely important to learn to ignore those people and just like be around positive people
yeah,
instead, and advocate for yourself, because that's the only way that you're really going to get somewhere, because if you don't, then you're just going to keep staying in the same place.
yeah,
And yeah, just be confident and
yeah.
be.
Yeah, great advice. I'm sure young Lara would have really much valued that advice at the time as well. So I've got a question here, which kind of touched on where I was heading as well, from Jennifer.
Yeah.
Uh, and it comes down to, finding your people, methods that you use to find your people. So Jennifer's asked the question about how do you find the right trusted supports that are able to manage your visual elements of your profile and brand, social media, and I guess too, like, be able to be a constructive criticism as well, because that's obviously important to drive somebody's career also.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, from day one, my parents have been my biggest supporters,
Yeah,
and I also have some really great support workers who take me to gigs and, well, yeah, they take me and also my equipment. So, I have a really good support worker who helps with setting up my keyboard and the mic stand and the mic
yeah,
and amp and everything like that. And in terms of managing social media, I kind of do most of that myself. Although
yeah,
when I post photos, I either ask my mum to look over them, or my
yeah,
manager Duncan from Platinum Creative.
yeah,
So Duncan has been my manager since 2018. He actually discovered me through The Voice, and yeah, he contacted me on Facebook. I didn't reply straight away, and
yeah.
then he sent me a few more messages, and I thought, okay, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I'll just reply, and he's been my manager ever since, and he's gotten me so many gigs and performing opportunities, which has been really good.
Okay, so found yourself an agent as a person to kind of help you with that sort of thing. What's his story? As he does he have lived experience of disability in general? What does he
So
bring to the table over other agents, I suppose?
Well, so I hadn't actually contacted an agent or manager
Yeah,
before. Like, I was thinking about possibly doing that, but then he contacted me and said that he was Rachel Learcar's manager.
right. Okay,
And
okay,
I thought that was like super cool. And also, he's vision impaired himself.
right.
So he has lived experience. And
Yeah,
so yeah.
So it's sort of tying into finding your people as well, and you're finding that little community that's gonna push you the most effectively.
Yeah. And he also
Um,
manages a lot of other artists with disabilities.
right, okay,
So,
okay.
so yeah.
Bit of a portfolio there. That's good. That's really good. I've got a question from Christy just in regards to you mentioned when you were younger, you were very into writing.
Yeah.
Um, have you, is there a thought in your mind of writing a book about your life and your music at this point?
Well, I
Or is
mean,
it coming after the best of album?
yeah, I've kind of thought that when I'm older, I might want to write a book about myself.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm just not at that point yet. Like, I don't even have an album or an EP
yeah,
because I've released a few original songs and covers, and I post things on like Facebook and Instagram,
yeah,
but I'm just I don't know, like I have to be really accomplished if I was to write a book about myself, I guess, that people would actually read. And when I was younger, even though I loved writing and I still do, songwriting doesn't actually come naturally to me.
yeah. I was going to ask that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Like I've just always liked writing stories and um or I never was into writing essays to be honest, but it was something I was like better at compared to other subjects.
yeah.
So yeah.
So talking about sort of songwriting in general,
Yeah.
um, and kind of tying that a little bit into as well, maybe a bit of goal planning and things like that. Is that something that you do a lot of? Do you sort of um, write a goal list of things that you want to achieve and kind of work towards achieving them? Or is it kind of one of those things like I'll use a writing term out of interest, like are you a bit of a pantser, ride by the seat of your pants sort of thing?
Um so I don't actually write goals down. Maybe I should do that. I think it would be a much more realistic way for me to achieve some of my goals, although
Yeah,
I try to have an idea in my head about what I want to work on for the year. And like I do end up achieving some of my goals, but a lot of things just kind of happen. Like I
yeah,
don't plan for them, especially with performing. So a lot of performances have just come out of nowhere. Like
yeah,
it wasn't really a goal as such to be on carols, as I was mentioning before, but it was kind of just a dream of mine, and
yeah.
and it actually happened. So yeah, and other things like that.
So putting a lot of positive vibes out there, maybe getting a couple of positive vibes back, sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
do set goals for myself in terms of other things such as like finding a job and
yeah,
well, like finishing uni twice was a
yeah,
goal. I
yeah,
mean, I never really planned to do a second degree, but after my first one and everything that happened after that, I just thought, I need to do that. But it wasn't really like a long-term goal I had.
yeah,
So yeah, I guess I could say I do set goals for myself in terms of um like other areas, but just not really music.
yeah. Okay, okay. So I got a question from Kathy here, who obviously speaks about loving music also and loving singing. She wanted to know a little bit about how you sort of play the piano and sing, and you also read Braille music as well, don't you? Do you all do all three of those simultaneously, or do you more of a sort of practice a song without needing to read it off paper?
That's a really interesting question. So when I was younger, I tried learning Braille music and I went to Braille music camp about 6 times, and like it was so much fun. I made friends with other blind people from all around Australia, but
Yeah.
to be honest, I just found that it wasn't really practical for me to read Braille music because um you have to like read with one hand and try and play the piano with another, and
Yeah.
it was just a bit complicated for me because it's not like regular Braille. You
Yeah.
kind of think about it a lot more when you're reading it. Um, so I was lucky enough to be able to learn by ear. So like I had a piano teacher when I was doing my AMEB uh, piano for leisure grades when I was a lot younger, and she recorded the left hand and right hand parts
Yeah.
on the Victor Reader stream, which I used to have. It's a blindness device,
Yeah.
and I used to go home and slow it down and try learning it that way.
Yeah.
And it's like really frustrating. I didn't like it at all. But somehow I just stuck with it. And yeah, I learnt the pieces for all my exams, and I finished doing the AMEB, and then after that I wasn't into classical music anymore, so I just kind of learnt songs that I like. So I
Yeah.
just listen to a song a few times um and try and learn the chords by ear pretty much.
Yeah. Um, so I guess at this point in time, I've also got another question. I've got a question from Shelley. Hello, Shelley. Uh, she's asking the question in regards to whether there are other instruments that you've learned to play as well, or have a desire to learn as well, or is it piano is your go-to?
Um, so I actually learnt a bit of guitar for
Right.
my music therapy degree because that was a requirement.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, everyone had to learn guitar because it's more portable than a keyboard, and you can take it everywhere, and you can still play like the same songs on guitar as you can on piano, but um, to be honest, I found it a bit harder to
Yeah.
learn guitar because um, there's a lot of YouTube tutorials that only show pictures
Right.
of how to do it. So it was hard to sort of um, learn the fingering for the chords
Yeah.
and the finger shapes. So I I actually got a guitar teacher for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a few chords, but like it's definitely not my preferred instrument. It's still piano.
Okay. And look, kind of tying into the advocacy field as well. W- Once again, you've got a teacher. Uh, Being able to advocate for yourself as well has probably helped you sort of explain to teachers as well what exactly that you need in order to pick up new instruments and things like that, I imagine.
Um,
Or is it they've already had a bit of experience sort of teaching someone who's blind how to play instruments?
so the guitar teacher that I had, well, actually, my vocal and piano teachers as well, they didn't actually have any experience teaching other blind people
Yeah.
before. But I don't really think I had to explain that much about um like how to teach me differently than a sighted person,
Yeah.
although they did, well, the piano and guitar teachers did use a lot of hand-on-hand
Yeah.
techniques to show me the notes and how to play chords. So that was really helpful.
Yeah.
And other than that, though, I think everything else, they kind of just did the same. Or, well, I mean, I didn't use books to learn,
Yeah.
just audio, as I mentioned, but um,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
maybe
Um,
they explain things a little bit more. But
yeah. Well, look, obviously they got through to you, so I'm going to say that they were good teachers then. Good find.
Yeah, yeah, they were pretty good.
So I've got another question from Christy, just asking in regards to recording piano, because she's also a musician and she's involved with a lot of musical groups, wondering what to use. So accessible sort of recording sort of programs for your piano. Well, we've just had Lara freeze on us. I'm hoping she'll come back to us shortly. Oh, you there, Lara? Oh, okay. So we've lost Lara. Lara will probably join us, come back to us shortly anyway. While we're waiting, we'll we'll wait for Lara to come back through. But while we're waiting, obviously, anyone that is wanting to get other questions in, definitely utilizing the Alt keystroke Alt H to get some of those questions in. We are coming up to the last bit of the webinar. Hopefully Lara joins us again shortly, so we can direct those questions her way. But definitely get them in now while you're thinking of it, so we can sort of have those ready for her. And hopefully everyone's enjoying the webinar, because as I said, it's quite a privilege to speak to somebody like Lara, who's still sort of young in the music industry, but then has already seen so much in that time and so much development in that time. So I am planning to sort of move it into a little bit of discussion around some of the work that she's been doing with Dylan Alcott around getting more sort of people with disability represented in mainstream media. So it's a great question, Jennifer. I'll be one of the first ones I direct Lara's way, because I know that she has done a lot of karaoke to sort of when she was first starting out as a means of sort of doing covers and things like that. And I am sort of going to go into a bit of the Tamworth Country Music Festival, which is once again another amazing opportunity to sort of gain that exposure. Jennifer was asking, singing karaoke often a less formal way of performing. What place do you think it has in the music industry for a performer? I suppose covers kind of go in there as well.
Yeah. So singing karaoke is pretty fun. I've done it a few times with some friends. And when I was younger, I actually had a karaoke machine at home that I got for a Christmas present when I was 5. So I always enjoyed putting on some songs and singing to that. And yeah, like I think, well, that was kind of part of why I liked singing, I guess.
Yeah. So
Um,
sort of building a bit of a connection with sort of some of these other performers as well that are putting music out there. I know that you have um, yeah, if you like a song, you'll go away and you learn it quite quickly. It's one of those things that you tend to go for songs that you kind of like the sound of. Uh,
yeah.
with your songwriting, I know that you said it wasn't one of your something that it isn't something that came naturally to you, but we have a question from Stephen in regards to when you are songwriting, do you borrow, bits from other songs and reimagine things as they might be, or do you utilize like physical or like what's some of the places that you can like what inspires you when you're writing music?
Well, I don't really get inspired by being at a certain place
Yeah,
or doing certain things. I think that's why it's like not that easy for me to come up with ideas for songs.
yeah,
Um, co-writing is really good because usually other people have great ideas, but you know, I do also contribute my own ideas to songs, and then we seem to come up with something pretty good.
Yeah,
Um,
amazing. I would even say amazing because I've listened to a lot of your music and yeah,
yeah,
definitely seems to be a cohesive package. It doesn't, I wouldn't have guessed that you find it a bit challenging, to be honest. It seems to come naturally.
uh, I mean, sometimes I like to improvise melodies on the piano, or sometimes I might just like have a tune pop into my head and I might sing it, and then I try and record it if I'm like somewhere quiet, but usually that's not the case. But like another more recent thing is that AI is actually a great way to get new ideas for writing songs, because you can literally just put in a prompt and it'll come up with some lyric suggestions for you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think that's something I'll be using a bit more often.
yeah. And that's very cutting edge. Yeah, that's very new for any performer, sort of utilizing, well, for any industry utilizing something like that.
Yeah.
Um, with let's talk a little bit about you becoming the Amy girl because I think that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a claim to fame, isn't it?
It
How did
was,
that sort of come about, and why is that initiative so important to you?
yeah, so basically the story of how I got to be the Amy girl from 2023 to March 2024 was that when I was performing at Carol's in 2022,
Yeah,
um, um, like the sponsor was Amy. They've been sponsoring the event for quite a few years now. But I went out to dinner with some people from Vision Australia, um, and the marketing lady from Amy was there too.
yeah,
And mum happened to mention to her that when I was in primary school, I used to walk around singing jingles, which is like so random. But the
photo. Yeah,
Amy jingle was one of my favorites. So I would walk around singing "Lucky You're with Amy," and then so mum said um well, so basically, yeah. So mum said, "Would you like her to sing it for you?" And the lady was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." So we were still just sitting down having dinner, and I sang it, and and then the marketing lady was like, "Oh, I've got goosebumps," and then she said, "Well, you know, if we ever do a new Amy campaign, we'll think about contacting you to see if you would be interested in singing the jingle for us." And
yeah.
then I didn't think much of it. I thought, yeah, okay, that was pretty cool. Um, but then 6 months later, I was just getting home from uni on a Wednesday afternoon, and I got an email about the Dylan Alcott Foundation Shift 20 initiative, which I
Yeah.
was talking about earlier, which is about disability representation. And they wanted me to be the new Amy girl.
It's amazing. It's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah, it was
So,
so exciting.
um, I guess a lot of the questions that we've got from people through today, there's a bit of a theme around people that are performers or wanting to be performers.
Yeah.
Um, what's some advice that you might be able to give to them that may be thinking about challenging themselves as either a performer or an academic or a music, a music therapist or even a songwriter? What's something that you can sort of instill on them? What's something you'd like them to walk away from this webinar with?
Well, I would definitely say create social media accounts, because that's one great way for followers to find you and connect. and even uh gig organizers as well, like from different organizations and companies. So yeah, like uploading videos of yourself singing and playing and performing, and even just doing recorded covers as well,
Yeah.
like the still image. That's what I do sometimes, although I much prefer to post videos of me performing live.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so social media is like a massive part of it. And other than that, like there's well there's also Facebook groups for musicians. So
Yeah.
for example, the Sydney Musicians Network is
Yeah.
one. I've actually never really posted in there, but that's one way of finding gigs.
Yeah.
Uh,
So basically creating a bit of a portfolio of you performing and getting it out there is
yeah,
a lot like what you're suggesting, and there's various different means for people to do that.
yeah,
Um, that probably wasn't around a little while back.
yeah,
Mm,
exactly. And like also approaching different venues and seeing if they would like a performer
like
as
an open mic sort of thing.
yeah, yeah, like open mics, or I know someone who performs at Westfield a lot,
Yeah. Okay.
and I think that person got to do those gigs through just asking
Yeah.
the manager there. I don't really do busking all that much, but I know that people who do usually just ask around, and sometimes they might know people who know other people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Still very much that industry, isn't it? That music industry. We are obviously a little bit behind on time here, but I just wanted to what I really wanted to get across, because as I said, I know how important exposure is in the music industry. How can people find yourself and some of the gigs that you've got coming up?
Okay, so I don't actually have a website yet, but I am on social media and I have been for quite a while. So my Instagram and Facebook username is at Lara Nakhle Music. I can spell that. So it's LARANAKHLE Music. And I've also got songs on digital platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music,
Yeah.
um, and all of those.
And you're obviously based in Sydney as well. So anyone that is based in Sydney, will keep an eye on the socials so you can go and maybe be a bit of an audience member for Lara if she's got a gig coming up in Sydney as well, I imagine.
Yeah, thanks. That would be great.
Get a very raucous front row. We'll get you all sorted there, Lara. So look, as I said, we've come to the end of our webinar, and what a fantastic webinar it's been. So once again, I'd like to thank Lara Nakhle for joining us and telling us a little bit about her own experience getting into the music industry and some of her process, and it's been really fantastic. So thank you so much for your time, Lara.
Thanks so much for having me.
And I'm sure all of you in the that have been listening along. Well, I've got multiple messages, Lara, especially while we were experiencing technical difficulties. While the people are really enjoying the webinar, and thank you once again for everyone that's joined along as well. And we look forward to seeing some of you or having some of you along on our next webinar next Monday at 2 o'clock as well. So once again, thank you, Lara. I'll end the webinar there, but yeah, hopefully we'll see you all next week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Guys.